Horrible, horrible things happen every day. Just the other day, they forgot the extra pickles on my Subway sandwich. Fortunately, I am extremely mentally strong and was able to get through it. But not everyone is so lucky. Some people get into car crashes. Men and women die in war. Hospital workers watch people suffer in unimaginable ways. The worst part is, the horror doesn't end after the inciting incident. People who go through traumatic events can suffer from PTSD for years, decades, or even the rest of their life. But if you unfortunately find yourself in the aftermath of a traumatic situation, play Tetris as soon as possible. What? Why? I mean, Tetris is a fun game, but surely I should take some time to process the traumatic event that just occurred before I start playing games on my phone. Well, according to a study in 2020, playing Tetris immediately after a traumatic event can actually reduce the symptoms and onset of PTSD. The study looked at people with combat-related PTSD and compared two groups. Both groups received EMDR therapy, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Essentially, it involves the participant recalling the traumatic memory while doing a task that stimulates both sides of your sensation, for example, following a light, moving back and forth with your eyes. One group in the study also played Tetris after the EMDR therapy session. Participants' symptoms were measured and brain scans were performed. Because PTSD is linked to the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, which deal with memory and emotional regulation, those parts of the brain were also scanned. It was found that EMDR therapy as well as Tetris actually increased brain volume in the hippocampus region, and an increase of volume in the hippocampus is linked with a decrease in PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Following up with the participants 6 months later also showed that only the Tetris group had a reduction in their levels of anxiety. But why is this the case? Well, there are a few theories. First is that because Tetris is a cognitively engaging task, it promotes the growth of new brain cells. It is also very possible that by playing Tetris while long-term memories have not yet been formed, you can compete with those traumatic memories, and therefore weaken them, leading to less trauma-related flashbacks. Of course, this treatment is most effective within 6 hours of the traumatic event occurring, while long-term memories are still being consolidated. But the good thing about Tetris is that it can be played in many situations. The game is simple and very portable. Obviously, there are some situations where it would be very difficult to pull out your phone and start playing Tetris. For example, a combat situation or otherwise very inopportune time. But you could probably play Tetris if you were just in a car crash and are sitting in your hospital bed. Imagine your doctor writes you a prescription for Tetris instead of morphine. So how can this study be applied? According to the NIH, around 9 million people in the US alone deal with PTSD. In my opinion, targeting places where traumatic events are dealt with, for example a hospital, could be very effective. Imagine a gamepad with Tetris on it in every hospital room, or even just in the ER waiting room. Other places like police stations, shelters could be potentially very helpful. It is kind of funny to imagine every soldier being given Tetris to play after missions. Mandatory conscripted phone time. Or a first responder bringing out a defibrillator and a Nintendo DS with Tetris on it. But according to this study, it could seriously be very helpful to people's future well-being. I'm pretty certain this effect isn't purely limited to Tetris. It's not like Tetris itself has some magical code that directly targets PTSD. Any game with a visuospatial component could theoretically work just as well. One of the most popular games on the mobile app store right now is Block Blast, which is very similar to Tetris. So it's likely many people already have a Tetris-like app already installed on their phone. I find it really interesting how a game like Tetris, which was originally made for entertainment, has found a new use in the field of psychotherapy. I wonder if other types of video games have the potential to target other areas of the brain. Tetris builds the hippocampus, so maybe other games improve the amygdala or the thalamus. I also wonder if there are games that exist that do the opposite. Imagine a game that hurts your brain. Obviously, playing some games can rot your brain, Genshin Impact. But would playing something like Call of Duty worsen the effects of PTSD? If so, what would happen if you played both Tetris and Call of Duty? Maybe they'd just balance each other out. But that's all just pure speculation. To conclude, I would recommend downloading Tetris or some sort of other related app on your phone, just in case. Then, if you or someone you know gets in a terrible situation, remember to pull out your phone and play for an hour. It might help you out a lot in the long run.
What could you be?